this is an idea that I've had, is like you see international crash outs happening and just many completely different countries with completely different cultures, completely different ethnicities, completely different races. But it seems the crash outs seem to just have several similarities, like what happened in El Salvador, what happened in Mexico, like in Indonesia, and what's happening now in Iran. It's like there's always just this one through line that connects all of these, and it's people's lives suck. People can't vote. They're being actively oppressed, and then at one point they just had enough. And see, Americans will protest and burn down cities because an election didn't go your way. They protest because they don't get an election. Like they don't get a choice. These oppressive regimes, like in Iran in particular, kills its own people for disagreeing with the state and with how they run things. Like you will get killed. It is an oppressive regime that funds terrorism off the money of its people. So this happens, right? And they can barely afford to feed themselves, right? They can barely afford to survive, and they're just expected to just allow it. But they're like, no. How about I don't allow this? How about me and literally millions of people just actively and violently revolt against these things? And these aren't people that they don't like their culture. It's not like they don't like their religion. They don't like, you know, aspects of Iranian culture. They just want to be able to put food on the fucking table and get out of like from under the boots of these like radical fucking almost insane fucking crazy dictators that just suck money from them and fund other terrorism. So let's give this a watch because I didn't even like I knew they overthrew their previous king or their Shah, and this happened throughout a lot of Islamic countries. They overthrew, people that were reasonable, though might not have. I think in this particular case, they were allies to America, overthrew them, and then immediately became America's enemy and funding terrorism and their America's enemies. But now, apparently, the fuck I didn't know that they were exiled. Like apparently the crown, that person, his wife was exiled, and now was it the crown prince or was it the Shah? I don't know. Let's give this a watch. Apparently the internet's out, and usually, and this happens, like you'll see this with many like countries when they shut the internet off. Assume they're going to pull some shit. When they shut the internet off, when they shut the lights off, assume shit's about to hit the fan. And because why else would they shut that shit off? And again, these are just phones and recordings and clips from the people on the ground, right? Not from a journalist. Not from. These are just people just showing all this shit happening, and everyone has their phone, right? And that's also proof that with the internet, you can't pretend like things can't get better. Like I think the internet is probably one of the greatest tools to connect people from different countries on the planet, different ethnicities, right? Like for all of its bad, and people always say it's the greatest evil. There's objective good that came with the internet. Because you can look at how things are doing in America and be like, so why can't we live like that? Like countries like Venezuela, Argentina, they used to be the wealthiest countries on the planet, but then they went just straight nose dive to shit because people just sucked money from them. And same happening in Iran. Iran, with its neighbors and allies and its geographical location, should be a relatively wealthy country, but they're not. Like, people can barely afford to feed themselves. Their money's going to fund legitimate terrorists around the world. And now they're sick of it. And people, and again, these people aren't people that don't like their country. They like their country. They just don't want it to be ran to the ground by people that just wants to suck it of its wealth and give it to other terrorist organizations.
A revolution underway in Iran. Massive protests against Ayatollah Khomeini and its brutal regime are persisting in Iran, as Iranian citizens take to the streets over its failed economy and skyrocketing inflation, up 50%. Food prices surging more than 70%. President Trump has warned Khomeini there will be severe consequences if protesters are killed. But the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Iran...
Yeah, and again, this is a perfect tactic. It's like, yeah, of course. Like, again, and imagine how much money America would save, not having to put ships, like, on the, like, next to them just to keep them from flipping the fuck out. Not to quit having to bomb their nuclear facilities to make sure they don't just launch a nuclear fucking holocaust. Like, imagine how much money we can save by just leaving that area the fuck alone. I mean, this is a problem that affects more than just them. It affects us too, because, I mean, we have interests in the Middle East. As much as I think we shouldn't. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the situation we're in.
Is threatening to strike U.S. military bases in the Middle East if the U.S. tries to take down the Iranian regime. Here's the president.
That's funny. They can barely keep their own people from fucking with them. Nah, I don't think that's ever gonna. I think they can barely, unless they have cells in other fucking countries in the Middle East, which I believe they do. It's odd that they're making this threat despite their own nation going to shit and their people blowing their shit up.
On Friday,
Iran's in big trouble. It looks to me that the people are taking over certain cities that nobody thought were really possible. I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts.
as protesters ramped up on Thursday, the Ayatollah dug in by cutting all internet service and international calls inside the country. The internet has been out for 60 hours so far, with Iranian officials also trying to jam up Elon Musk's Skylink to further isolate the country. As protesters...
I thought it was Starlink. Is Skylink sort of like a kind of smaller? But no, I think she probably just said it wrong. And again, these are just clear actions of a regime that does not want. But again, people, they can't hide the fact that this is happening anymore. They can't pull the wool over your eyes, and it's clear why other news media outlets, I mean, Fox is the only one, but it's clear why CNN and other news outlets are not covering this, right? And dare I be red-pilled, you know, there's clearly this idea that they're trying to get across that something like this just clearly does not fit, which is why they kept their mouth shut. And again, to be fair, there's an event that happened a couple days ago that I'm still iffy if I want to discuss. I mean, yeah, it's going to be controversial and divisive, and look, I started this channel talking about video games, but mainly about video games and that shit. But I'm also an autist that just has an opinion on things and will express that. But a lot of people are saying, "Oh, they're trying to take our mind off of other things. Like this is a distraction." I'm like, so what are they trying to distract us from? And people are like, Epstein. It's like, oh, we can go hard on both, right? Like, again, the same thing was said about the Somalian scams, right? Like, this is the mindset you have to have. The mindset of who's trying to fuck with me, and how much of a spotlight can I put on it? Like, if people had this mindset of who's trying to fuck with me and how can I fuck with them back, we wouldn't be in this situation. But unfortunately, people don't think like me. People want to hold destructive, self-destructive mindsets. Well, whatever.
Have heeded
It's a distraction.
the call from my next guest, the exiled Crown Prince of Iran, His Royal Highness Reza Pahlavi, called on the people to mobilize and take to the streets against the authoritarian government. Demonstrators calling for Pahlavi to return and to lead Iran. Pahlavi's father, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was Shah of Iran from 1941 until 1979, overseeing key modernization initiatives in the country with close ties to both the United States and to Israel, until the extremists and the terrorists overwhelmed the monarchy, forcing the Shah and his wife, Empress Farah Pahlavi, to flee and the Ayatollah to return from exile. Iran then shifted overnight from a U.S.-allied monarchy to an anti-Western Islamic regime.
Yeah, and again, you can tell between the looks of these two people, like, this is chill, this is not chill. Like, and a lot of countries have fell to this in the Middle East, just these radical, insane people whose entire, like, they don't add anything else other than they just hate the West and what it represents. And it's like, I mean, you can have modernization, and still keep your culture. It is something that is possible, but they don't want that because you have a lot of these people that are in these positions specifically because, okay, you're in this position, you're, I don't know, some fucking commander, and once the war is over, you're not in that position. You're not sucking the money or the wealth anymore because you had nothing else to do. So it's one of those things where you gotta keep this position regardless. You see this with other situations, like in the Ukraine and Russia, or with Hamas and Israel. Like, once the war ends, you'll have just these commanders in high positions that just want the war to continue because that's really all they know.
Soon to become the largest state sponsor of terrorism, funding Hezbollah and Hamas, among other groups. President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio posting this weekend on social media that the U.S. stands with the people of Iran, with the president writing this is not the Obama administration when it comes to standing up to the Iranian Ayatollah and his religious Nazi henchmen, and standing behind the people of Iran protesting for a better life. The president retweeted that tweet from Lindsey Graham, who will be joining me momentarily. To the regime leadership, Graham wrote, your brutality against the great people of Iran will not go unchallenged. Join me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive. In the middle of these calls to return to power and free the people is His Royal Highness, the exiled Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi. Your Highness, thank you so much for being here this morning.
So this is the man himself right here. And then this is a smart move from him. It's like, yeah, I'm going to take to the internet, to these interviews, to the greatest tool that against oppressive regimes, which is the internet. People knowing and seeing what's on the other side of the ocean, what's on other places on the planet, and being like, okay, why can't we live like that? We should be rich. And this is the eyes of someone who's seen some shit and is like he's convicted. He has his convictions of wanting to come back.
Good morning, Maria.
We have seen other times when the people have risen up, but it feels different this time. You called for the people to mobilize for 2 straight nights this week. Does it feel different? Assess for us what is taking place this weekend in Iran.
Maria, to put it into perspective, in the last 48 hours, Iranians have suffered more casualties than America did after the 9/11 attack. This is a moment that is defining. Despite being completely cut off from the world, internet shut down, and for a regime that is massacring its own people, this is an opportunity to liberate that nation. Remember, the same thugs that hate America also hate their own people.
Yeah, and again, you also got to understand, like, when trying to uphold a brutal regime, like, think about North Korea, right? Like, I'm trying to pull examples that are the same, but not particularly exactly the same. It's like they have to enforce the regime because generations of families and of people have suffered under it. And the minute they loosen their grip, these people are just going to reach up their arm and stab them in the neck. Like, I 100% believe this brutal regime in Iran, like, these people are just going to kill them. Like, this is how things happen in the old days. The minute your regime falls, like, you'll be lucky to make it out of it alive. Like, the people are not going to be gracious, and they shouldn't be, especially since you're mobilizing against them.
And this is an opportunity to help a nation that starves for liberty, that starves to be rejoined with the free world, and to have the same relationship that we had with America before this revolution occurred, to liberate ourselves and come back to the fold and contribute to world peace and stability regionally and beyond.
Now, Your Highness, you have called for the opportunity to become the transitional leader. You've said many times with me on this program, you are hoping to be a transitional leader. What is your plan in that transition? What would the first 100 days look like? Because we know that these protests are economic in nature. They are about food and life and democracy second.
Maria, I'm a fighter pilot. I've trained all my life for exactly this moment, and people are calling on me to step in and lead this transition. I'm here to lead and help our nation go through that transition. But beyond liberation, we have to have a plan for a stable, smooth transition, a plan that, unlike other scenarios we witness in our neighborhood, like the debathification in Iraq, will not lead to chaos. We have to ensure stability. We have to be able to protect the citizenry. We have to be able to stabilize the economy. And for that, we have very comprehensive plans. I'm helped by numbers of economists, scientists, jurists, and specialists in every field, so we can, in fact, address all of these issues the moment the opportunity comes.
And I believe that when he was the Shah, or his dad was the Shah, like they had that plan worked out, because I think it just became the American ally, and they had the plan then, but then they were deposed. So I mean, plans will always look good on paper, but in practice may get a little iffy. But obviously he understands that, yeah, this is something we're gonna have to work out. And, we'll probably not be done in 100 days, or at least not as easily, but something that can be.
More importantly is what we're doing right now. As you can see, people are still fighting despite this crackdown. They hope that there will be assistance in protecting them from further bloodshed. I've called upon further strikes, and that's beginning to unfold. We're beginning to see more and more defections, which is very important as part of the transition.
Yeah, and again, once they lose that military might, like I subscribe to the Starship Troopers line of logic that force is the ultimate equalizer. You can't have any law that you can't enforce because it's technically not a law, and you can't have any regime without very brutal and threatening force because then it just falls apart. Like, you gotta understand, like, Hamas enforces its brutal regime through force, right? Through terrorizing its own people to accept the fact that they tax them and then spend their money, right? And Iran, the exact same thing, taxes its people through force to send to terrorist organizations. Like, this is what's happening, and I mean, it's something that it's easy to understand if you play any type of strategy games. Like, if this is gonna sound stupid, right? But in a strategy game like Total War Warhammer, if you don't have the ability to stamp down every single fucking rebellion that pops up because I'm taxing the fuck out my people or out another person next to me, you lose provinces, you lose cities, and you just go belly up. The whole system falls apart. It's literally the same concept, something that's simple to understand. But again, I'm not an economist. I'm not, I don't have a army of lab coats and economists behind me. I just play games, and it's like, okay, yeah, that fucking makes sense.
So all of this is at play as we speak.
You have tweeted directly at President Trump, and you have a message for President Trump. What is that message, sir?
Mr. President, you have already established your legacy as a man committed to peace and fighting evil forces. There is a reason why people in Iran are renaming streets after your name. They know that you are totally opposite to Barack Obama or Joe Biden. They know that you're not.
Yeah, and bro, it's like after COVID and with Trump as the president, it's surprising you see a lot of these countries flipping out now. It's just coincidence.
To throw them under the bus as they have had before. This is why they believe that this time they are empowered by the hope that you have their back. Your words of solidarity with the Iranian people and your administration has had tremendous positive effect. Let's hope that we can permanently seal this legacy by liberating Iran so that we and you can make Iran great again. Let's partner on this and have a better future for our countries and for our people. This is an opportunity that has presented itself. I'm prepared to return to Iran at the first possible opportunity. I'm already planning on that, and the transition team. We hope only that the Iranian people this time will be victorious, and they will be, because I know that Iranians are prepared to die for this cause, and so am I. We're doing everything we can, and I think it's not just for us as Iranians, it's for the whole world. Iranians are prepared to sacrifice not just for themselves, but to make sure that all the evil that has been brought by this regime from the time it came to power dissipates, and we can finally breathe in an atmosphere of tranquility, good relationship with our neighbors, with the Israelis, with our Arab neighbors, and the rest of the world.
Yeah, and again, it's not the fact that they're funding terrorists. Iran also be spurging the fuck out with its neighbors. Like, imagine how the Iranian people feel just being abjectly hated by their neighbors because the regime that claims to represent them are just a bunch of radical fucking spurgs that live in the past, old fucking spurgs that interpret the Quran or whatever book to the letter, right? Where they beat women for not wearing a head towel. Like, imagine It has to be isolating knowing that, and now that you can barely afford to feed yourself and your family, it's like it's isolating and it's demeaning, and it's just like it, well, what's the word I'm looking for, right? It's like it must be to a sense dehumanizing. Like you just don't feel like you're being respected by your regime. So yeah, it's not surprising they're now spurting the fuck out towards the regime. You know, and it's also just you lack dignity. It's like okay, for all we know, what's the countries around? Is Iraq or like India? In any one of these, like America could drone strike at any point uh, through not actions of our own, just our radical regime of a fucking government. We could suffer and die. So it makes no sense it makes total sense that they're like, yeah, we're prepared to die for this.
And this will happen because, unlike this regime, this is the commitment of a nation.
Are you willing to make the commitment to free and fair elections after the transition? Sir, how long are you expecting a transition to take, and what happens then?
The most important process is the democratic process is for the people to have the opportunity to have their representative debate all what needs to be debated in a parliamentary process. My job is to lead this transition to make sure that no stone is left unturned, that in full transparency people have an opportunity to elect their leaders freely and to decide their own future. Under international observation, we will know that this will be fair and fair elections. I am committed to that. That has always been my objective. But it is important that we have a good process established so the world understand, and the people of Iran, most importantly, understand exactly this time how we're going to achieve that. Unlike what happened 47 years ago, where nobody really had a clue what it would mean to have what Khomeini planned for Iran. And by the time they woke up to it, it was too late. This time we cannot afford not to be clear on the alternative. I think the alternative is clear. The people have spoken. They have their trust in me, and I've stepped in at their request to provide them with that process. I'm committed to that, and I will do everything that I can to ensure that we end up with a democratic alternative in Iran.
So how?
Then again, it makes sense, right? Because this bro got white hair. He probably wants to, he probably wants to sit in his country, chill the fuck out. I don't know, bang his wife and just live out the rest of his days. He's simply here because the people need him and the people want him, right? Like he's probably gonna be like, yeah, I'm just gonna do this and then I'm just gonna fucking chill. I'm doing this because I need to do it. So it's like, yeah, I 100% believe that.
How long do you expect a transition to take?
We have to try to do it as soon as possible. Realistically speaking, it could take a couple of years because a lot of things need to happen and people need to be able to organize themselves, the right structures and everything. So it's a process that shouldn't take longer than that. And it all depends on how successful we are in implementing the immediate short-term needs that will stabilize the country. All of that will have an impact on how quickly we can address that issue and bring the transition period to a minimum amount of time possible.
The Trump administration a week ago went into Venezuela and extracted the leader there, Maduro. And do you believe that incident galvanized the people in Iran?
Look, every time countries are liberated anywhere in the world, it's a positive message of encouragement to other nations that are still gripping up with unwanted systems and regimes.
Yeah, it's like there's series of events that came to this point. It wasn't, out of nowhere, the people of Iran just decided to revolt. Like, it didn't just spring out the ether. Like, again, you have the internet. You can point at, okay, this is happening here, this is happening here. This is how, Trump's the president now, and he doesn't just say shit, he actually gets stuff done. I mean, he does say shit. But for the most part, he gets half of the stuff he says done. But I think people just had enough. You know, at one point, it's like with the spike in inflation and the rise of food prices, 70 fucking percent. It's like, yeah, people are going to get pissed off. And just almost in a couple months, yeah, people are going to get pissed and be like, what the fuck is this? And knowing that their money's just funding terrorism. It's like, is this regime even, like, do they even care for Iran? Or are they just sucking it for its wealth to funnel to, like, Hamas? And then when it's sucked dry, they just hop, skip, and jump to another country. Like, this is what the people are probably thinking. Do they even have allegiance to Iran and its people? And apparently not, which is why people are flipping the fuck out, and rightfully so.
It's a message of solidarity across the world. People were empowered when they saw the success of Nelson Mandela in South Africa, or the success of Lech Walesa in Poland, and so on and so forth. And in this case, our Venezuelan friends who have the same optic and vision of a tomorrow liberated Iran, because unlike the connection of Caracas, Tehran under these two regimes, they can understand that democratic nations will be the best partners possible. I'm happy for the Venezuelan people. I think the Iranian people get encouraged by that. And that's why I think the commitment to help the Iranian people in their liberation is not just, as I said, for the best interest of the Iranian people, but it is also in the best interest of the world, and particularly the United States of America.
And
Yeah, you also gotta understand, right? In every single one of these, it is legitimately the people that are like just rows and rows of people. Some of them you'd think is just AI, but to an extent you could think it's real. It's like it's people that need to work for a living, and now they're being squeezed of even more fucking money from the hard-earned fucking money, and they're like, well, enough's a fucking enough. Like, at the very least, it cannot get worse than what it is now. Like, it may only get a little better, but it can't get worse than what we have now.
And would you be willing to actually run in a potential election? I mean, you just said you were a fighter pilot. You were trained in the United States. Are you willing to take off the uniform after a transition and say, yes, I am going to run in an election, and we will see who the people decide is their next leader?
As I said, I'm here to lead, but the choice is that of the people. My job right now is to make sure that we achieve that transition, that as an honest arbiter, I'm a unifying force. That's why they're calling my name, because they have their trust in me. It's a huge responsibility that I intend to carry out to the best of my ability.
Your Highness, there is an issue about the Chinese Communist Party as part of this story as well. The Chinese finalized a deal back in 2021 to acquire ports in Iran. Are there plans to try to separate from the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, she's asking a good question. It's like there's a lot of deals signed with not entirely enemies of America, but they're to an extent adversaries, right? I mean, this is just how world powers are with diametrically opposing cultures. They're just going to be each other's adversaries and be in competition. This is why the whole AI debate, completely off topic, well, to an extent it's on topic. This is why the whole AI thing is, I think it's just a clear cut, just shut debate. It's like, okay, if America doesn't do it, China does it, and they outperform us, and you lose your American hegemony, which is when that happens, prices go up, and because they can run circles around us with these things, and it's like obviously America's not going to let that happen, regardless of people spurging the fuck out online. we're just not going to allow that. And I'm an accelerationist in the sense that someone's going to do it, so it might as well be us.
How do you see that playing out?
Look, Maria, this regime, out of weakness, have offered far too many concessions, whether to Russia or to China. We don't believe that the future of Iran has to be antagonistic to Russian or Chinese interests. We just don't want to have unfair, imposed, imbalanced arrangements. Most of these arrangements have been unfair and balanced, and it's basically devoiding our country in our national interests. So long as we can defend our national interests, we are prepared to deal with any bloc, so long as it's based on fair trade. And I think this is an element that will obviously be an issue of discussion in parliament and future governments in Iran as we determine our foreign policy and relationship with the whole world.
Yeah, I think that's a fair answer, right? It's like if you're on that landmass, it's like in Asia, I mean, China is the powerhouse, and I mean, Russia is both Asia and Europe, but the most of its economic power is more on the Europe side. The Asia side of Russia has, has a lot of people, like, native people, a lot of natural resources, but it's not really the powerhouse. And you kind of got to deal with the cards you have and with the people around you. So, I mean, that makes sense. I don't think America should interfere with what's happening now unless it gets too terrible, because I think Iran needs to own their protests. They need to own the revolution. Like the people need to own their freedom, not have other interests step in. And obviously people are going to be like, oh, the Israelis are doing, America's doing. It's like, things can work in your interest, but you have no control over. It's not difficult for that to happen.
So you think that could be part of the conversation, trying to get the CCP out of owning those ports?
As I said, this is something that has to be decided once we have a functioning democratic government. In the meantime, we have to be able to also protect the best interests of our nation, and that's why we should have an open mind as to how to deal with that, because we don't need to have further confrontation with anyone. We have to bring it back to sanity, responsible, pragmatic, and objective analysis, and see what's best. And hopefully we can have, based on mutual interest, a different arrangements than the one that we currently have, that is totally lopsided and undermines Iran's national interest. That we cannot stand for, and I will not stand for.
Yeah, also fair answer. I mean, it's like you gotta pick a battle, and right now the battle is stable. At least after all this, is stabilizing Iran. Like the type of questions she's asking are like third, fourth order effects. But it's like right now we can't really do anything until this situation. And I think Iran's cooked. Like, the regime in Iran is cooked. Like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But when it happens, you gotta worry about the things at hand. And, the whole China thing and interest with other countries can happen after all of that.
And this story is so enormous to actually think about the idea of potential freedom and a free Iran. I don't see a lot of the international media covering it, like the BBC, for example. What is your take on the media's role here?
Yeah, good question.
But look, mainstream media is entirely missing the actual narrative and ask that the people of Iran have. And again, when you have absence of internet and the feedback from Iran, it is very difficult for the world to understand really what's happening. I hope that the media ultimately feel responsible in giving fair coverage to the facts on the ground in Iran, rather than to offer some unfounded opinions or biased interpretation of what's happening. But regardless of whether the media coverage exists or not, we know what we need to do as a nation. But I think the world that has been in awe of the courage and determination of our compatriots have bypassed mainstream media. They do hear from the Iranian people. I just hope that they do their professional job, and this time really we have accurate accounting of what's really happening, and let the people judge on their own, as opposed to push an opinion on people.
And you're
And again, he understands that like it's surprising that everyone knows the media is biased and effectively the enemy because this is how they act. They act like the enemy, but no one can really agree. Like everyone knows, but they can't agree on that. It's difficult to explain that point.
Your Highness, before you go, I want to get your take on these threats from the Iranian Khomeini regime, saying that they will target U.S. military bases in the Middle East should the Trump administration get involved here. Are you expecting the administration, do you want to see the administration go into Iran and take out Khomeini? And what about the threats that they will hit back at our military installations in the Middle East?
Big question.
Look, the people of Iran have responded and reacted positively to a promise of intervention by the president and his administration, that if the regime turns their gun and continue massacring its own people, that will not remain unanswered. That's the ask on the ground. We need to make sure that this time the Iranian people are successful. That kind of assistance will go a long way in letting the Iranian people prevail in this war that we have against this regime. And we need to cut the snake's head off for good, so it can no longer be a threat to Iranian interest, to American interest, to regional interest. And the only solution is to make sure that this regime goes down for good and the Iranian people can liberate themselves, because they are, contrary to this regime, that is a sworn enemy of America. We Iranians are a friend to America. We proved it before, and we'll prove it again.
And again, I agree with that, but with the military, a lot of the military, like, just piecing the fuck out. Again, I think the Iranians, like I said, they have to own this for themselves. They have to own their victory. American intervention, it shouldn't get to that point, but I feel like this regime is crazy enough to where it probably will.
When was the last time you were in Iran?
It was July of 1978, so it's been a long time.
Your Highness, it's wonderful to have you this morning.
But I'll be there soon.
Yes, we will be watching. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mary.
Your Royal Highness Reza Pahlavi. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, I'm.
And yeah, I feel like a lot of the questions were but there are also some pretty good questions. It isn't protest, it's a revolution. Yeah, I'd definitely say it got to that point. Like, they are outright revolting against their government. Prayers for the Persian Persian. I mean, sure. I mean, I guess it was Persia before a lot of changes and a lot of things happened. Make Iran great again with America's support. Again, my opinion stays the same. They should do this themselves and own what's going to happen, and not have a lot of people, a lot of interest step in. Revolution, not a protest. Iranians are capturing the historic moment. Love from the USA, sending prayers. Standing with the people against the evil regime. God please free Iran. May he be glorified in the hearts of every Iranian. God help Iran. Yeah, I mean, obviously the comments are incredibly supportive. And again, I think this goes, I mean, I don't want to keep hearkening back to things that are happening here and other places, but I think this is yet another thing that goes against the narrative that a lot of media is trying to push, and there is a narrative that's being pushed that America evil and all these countries are better and the a religion of Islam is better. But again, you gotta again understand that they're not revolting against their culture. They're revolting against the fucking crazy weirdos that want to suck them dry of their money and support interests that aren't of the Iranian people. So you gotta understand that that's what's happening. But anyway, that's all I gotta say about this. Peace.